All right, people. Review of the week time. Oh boy, we could be here a while. If I can get this all done, it is exactly a quarter past 9. If I can get this all done in the next 25 minutes, I'll be mega impressed. Mega impressed. Let's see. Let's see if we can do it. So, as is always the case with these review of the weeks, we always start with the fights that have happened over the course of the weekend. And we try and do it in close to sequential as we can. Let's start. I say close to sequential. We're going to start with the last show, which was the one that happened last night in Norfolk, Virginia, I believe is where it was. Now, I didn't really look, full disclosure, I didn't see any of the fights that were on that card, right? But we got to talk about Keyshawn Davis because he was meant to headline against Edwin De Los Santos. I think that would have been a really, really good scrap. Well, we didn't see that fight. Why didn't we see that fight? Because Keyshawn Davis missed weight by what, 4 pounds? That's pathetic. That's absolutely pathetic. He must have known straight off the bat he was never going to make weight. There was reports that he was seen just, casually, munching away on popcorn the next day. So he didn't give no F's given, right? The fight's now not going to take place. He's lost money because of that, right? And he's held up his career and Edwin De Los Santos. And furthermore, his brother fought on the card, lost, and then he was seen getting into an altercation with the guy who beat him. That's scummy if ever I seen it. What the hell? Keyshawn Davis is tremendously talented, but he's going down that road, the Tank Davis road, the Charlo road, the way a lot of the Ryan Garcia road, the way these American fighters tend to be going down lately. It's just the Teofimo Lopez is another. I know he's never got into that, but all this, missing weight and this is that. It's just, I don't know what's going on. The diva culture in America with this particular generation is just, it's insane. Like late 90s, early 2000s. It's just like, what the hell happened? And Keyshawn Davis, it's frustrating because he's such a talented fighter. But good lord, there's no use having the talent if you go and just squander it away with ridiculous crap like this that you don't need to be doing. Missing weight by that amount shows me that you'd no intention of making weight. Shows me that you'd no intention of even doing it in proper during camp against a very, very good fighter in Edwin De Los Santos. Make no mistake about it. And then to go and to get into an altercation. I did see clips of the altercation that was happening backstage after the fight. It's ridiculous. It's just not been a good week for him at all. But that was the whole card in a nutshell because I didn't really see any of the fights on it. In terms of the card that happened on Friday, was obviously the Sauerlands did a show called Fast and Furious. And I guess the main event was fast and it was furious. Josh Kelly winning a first round knockout over Flavius Beia. Yeah, look, Kelly is an interesting one. All right, I'll talk more about him. Cyrus Pattinson got back to winning ways on the undercard. Matty Harris won a points decision over Dan Garber. Now, he normally gets stopped. Now, he was down a couple of times, but I don't know, man. I mean, you'd expect to be getting rid of someone like a Dan Garber, who is game, but he's been stopped a few times by, Moses Itauma stopped him. I think Alan Babbage might have stopped him as well. Or was that someone else? I think maybe he did. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. But I know Alan Babbage fought a big guy on one of the fight camps and he took a beating. I was thinking that might have been Dan Garber. Maybe I'm wrong on that one. Cyrus Pattinson also got back to win away. Remember, he was a Matchroom fighter for a while and he lost. I think he did. I think he lost or he drew his last fight, one or the other. He lost it and haven't really seen much of him. But in terms of Josh Kelly, he mentioned Conor Benn. He's with the Sauerlands, of course, and there's rumours that Ben Eubank 2 is going to happen on September the 27th. All right, if that is the case, then all right, let's wait and see. I personally don't think they need to revisit that rematch. I think both guys need to get a move on, in particular Chris Eubank Jr., with their respective career, because Conor Benn has a chance if he can get down to 147, because it's a very weak division, and with Boots potentially moving up, it could leave, it could give him an opportunity to sneak one of those titles. Could. I'm not saying it would. Could. Josh Kelly, on the other hand, Josh Kelly's a 154 fighter, 154 pounder. he's mentioning Conor Benn. Now, a lot of people are going to mention Conor Benn and a lot of people do mention Conor Benn because they see him as a big money fight with very little risk because a lot of people don't really rate Conor Benn. And to be honest with you, I don't either. I think his ceiling is quite low. Like, I'm saying welterweight because it's a weak division at the minute, so you could potentially sneak a title there, potentially. There was talk, so 2019, Kelly was Eddie Hearn's next big thing after Anthony Joshua. And he was, how did it go? They were mentioning Conor Benn and Josh Kelly. And at the time, Conor Benn looked really raw. Like, this was not long removed from the Cedric Payne debacle. And he didn't look like he should be in anywhere near Josh Kelly. Fast forward 2 years later, he's fighting Josh Kelly, David Evanesian, and he gets battered in that fight. And there was a lot of talk and a lot of hearsay that if he'd gotten through Evanesian, they were going to do Kelly Benn. Now, Josh Kelly hasn't really impressed me for a long time. Like, I mean, even if you're talking pre-Ray Robinson, so that's 6 years now. It's a long time. I was never high on Josh Kelly anyway. I always thought he was flash, but nothing else. He was all flash, no dash. He's all that athleticism, and yet I still think he's got a very low ceiling. But saying that, I always thought he had the beat in the Conor Benn. And I still do now. I think I think Eddie Hearn would be very foolish to make that fight, quite frankly, for Conor Benn if he's looking to try and get him into world titles or whatever. Because I don't actually see that going well for Conor Benn. I think the speed of Josh Kelly, the accuracy, be too much for Conor Benn. I genuinely do. So that was the Sauerland card that was on Friday night. Let's talk about the card that happened in Ipswich last night. Sam Gilly. This is a strange one, right? So Sam Gilly, I didn't see this fight, but he has a draw with a guy who came in on short notice, Gideon Omiani. I think that's how you say that guy's name. He is from the UK, from Kent, and he has a very unflattering record. 7 wins, no stoppages in them 7 wins, 5 losses and 1 draw. The draw being Sam Gilly. There's no real names on his resume, even in the win column, in particular the lose column. It's Jimmy Sains. I do kind of recognise that name. I've heard that before. But he drew that over 8 rounds, actually. Now, Sam Gilly was on a good run of form. He'd won, I think, his last fight back in October. He beat Louis Green in a really good scrap at 154 pounds. That might have been for a British title. And he was meant to fight Louis Green again. I think Louis Green pulled out. And, Sam Gilly drawn with someone like that. And you can't use the excuse for Sam Gilly that, he took this fight on short notice because he was penciled in for a while. Now, I have heard a few things about Sam Gilly, and I've no reason to doubt that they are not true. So I believe they probably are. And if that is the case, I'm not surprised he's going life and death with guys now. Because boxing is a sport that you need to be zoned in on. That's what I'll say on that one. Pierce O'Leary, Liam Dillon. I spent the majority of that fight answering questions about lessons I learned in my 20s in the live watch along. And if you go back and watch the watch along, that's literally what I did for the duration of that 12 rounds. They didn't seem a great scrap, to be fair. I had way more fun having it on in the background than answering your guys' questions during the live watch along. So that was that. I did catch a bit of Mike Perez, Stephen Ward. Mike Perez appeared to really put a beating on Stephen Ward, and in particular the 8 rounds. They were really debating whether to let Ward out for round 8 or not. In the end, they did, or for round 9. In the end, they did. He didn't last long. Mike Perez is got to be pushing 40 now. How old is he? 39. Mike Perez is Cuban, but he's based in County Cork. He still has ability there. He can still punch a bit. I don't know where he fits in the cruiserweight division. He is managed by Dillian Whyte, who was meant to be on this card. We'll talk about him now in a wee sec. But yeah, the whole card itself was not incredible. It was obviously headlined by Fabio Wardley versus Justice Huni, which was it wasn't a classic. We're not talking about a Hagler Hearns, a Gatti Ward or anything like that. But it was. I don't want to labour the point on it because I've already talked about this at great length. But I essentially did get the fight I got, but it went a lot longer than I thought we would get. But it went a lot longer than I thought it would. And Justice Huni showed me things that I didn't think he had. Justice Huni looks a lot better, and he definitely performed a lot better than I ever thought he would perform. So massive credit to him. I cannot fault his performance in the slightest, apart from the knockout that he suffered. At the end of the day, when you are the loser and you suffer a one-punch knockout, but they're checking on the winner immediately after the fight. The doctors they're checking on you too, but you've been knocked out, so fair enough. But so it kind of tells you how this fight was going. Fabio Wardley actually has mentioned Derek Chisora. He was talking about war versus war. That's a more stylistically pleasing fight for a Fabio Wardley, because obviously a counterpuncher, someone with good technical ability. And it wasn't like he was, Pernell Whitaker in there just as Huni or anything like that, or Floyd Mayweather. He just had a high guard, good counterpunching, good jab, and it caused Fabio Wardley fits, whose defense was all over the place. He had the guard down real low. He was moving back in straight lines with shots. It was very poor tactics from Fabio Wardley, but ultimately he was able to pull that right hand out the bag in the 10th round. The count did look particularly fast, I'm not going to lie. Obviously you're watching it live, and they shouldn't have done that, pulling away when the referee's administering the count, pulling away to Frank Warren's reaction. They really shouldn't have done that on the live feeds. That is a critique I have. I just don't think they should have done that personally. But then you can see the count being administered, and I've no doubt in my mind that had the referee had let it carry on, you're talking about a minute and 30 to go from a very heavy knockdown, and he looked badly hurt, and he didn't even complain, just as Huni. He would have probably got laid out cold, in my opinion. So I guess the referee, again, he's able to look into the eyes. He can see more than what we can see. But, you do have to ask that question 100%. I'm not going to knock anyone who says it did look particularly fast to me. So I would say that with regards to that fight. So that's the weekend's boxing done. Let us have a look at some of the news. And I was going to mention Dillian Whyte, but let's mention the big news about Turkey and Dana. So Turkey Al-Sheikh, Dana White, we'll start with this. They are going to make an announcement, I think tomorrow is what I'm hearing. Well, it's saying the first news conference for Canelo versus Crawford is going to be this week, but I'm hearing reports that's potentially going to be tomorrow. It's going to say where the fight is. Dana White is apparently going to be promoting it, even though it seemed that they wouldn't be a few weeks ago. So hell has since frozen over. It would now see him. I don't really know what's going on with Dana White and Turkey Al-Sheikh. 1 minute it's happening in the Raider Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. Then it's not, and then it's like, well, who was the promoter? It was going to be on Netflix. Who's the broadcaster? All this stuff, and you're kind of like, well, what's going on here? Seems like it is going to be Dana White now. So let's just keep an eye on this, and we'll just watch the space. In terms of other news, Alexander Usyk giving a very long message to Vasily Lomachenko, essentially wishing him well in his retirement. Listen, right? And I'm only noticing I haven't talked about Jay Opetaya. I will talk about him now in a sec. Listen, but we'll start with Lomachenko. Vasily Lomachenko, I did a video on him, and I'll just reiterate it again. He was one of my favourite fighters to watch. I loved watching him. The footwork, the movement, the shot selection, the combination punching. This is a guy who in his second pro fight was fighting Orlando Salido and getting fouled incessantly along the way. He beat a peak Gary Russell Jr., took his O. He's beaten the guys like Rocky Martinez. He's beaten, what's his name now? Nicholas Walters took his O, took Rigondozo, Jason Sosa, Anthony Crawler, Luke Campbell. The list goes on, Richard Comey. He should have beat Devin Haney, George Kambosos, etc., etc., etc. The man is a legend, and I worry will future generations look at someone like a Loma and maybe not appreciate him for what he was in his peak. That's a fear I have, because is his resume the deepest? Probably not. Is Alexander Usyk a better, not more talented, because obviously heavyweights are not as talented generally as featherweights, but when you look at the achievements and accomplishments Alexander Usyk has done, 2-time undisputed, potentially 3-time undisputed, 2-time heavyweight undisputed, potentially cleaned out the cruiserweight division, done all that. He achieved more, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, as is Loma. But people will probably look and say Usyk was more impressive without looking at what Loma was in his peak. He was phenomenal. I wish Loma the best in retirement. I'm glad he's going out on his terms. I really am. There is money on the table for him still there, but he's choosing to go on his terms. He's not anymore, but he was IBF champion, so he retires as a world champion, which a lot of fighters don't have the luxury of doing. And he's leaving the sport. He's doing it on his terms. He's not sticking around. We're not calling for him to retire. We're not worrying about his health, all that stuff. He's just decided enough is enough. He was no Lomachenko. Now he's saying no mas, and that's it. I'm look, selfish boxing fan. I loved Loma. I really did. One of my favorite fighters. But I'm glad he is leaving. It's the right time. It really is. It's the right time. And I said it in the video I did at the time. Whether it's a job, a day job, or whether it's any aspect of life, whether it's a relationship, whether it's anything, know when to leave it. Know when to walk away. Know when the right time is in any aspect of life to walk away. Because the longer you leave it, the worse it's going to get. You know, and some people don't. You know, the old saying comparison circles. People get stuck in a job that they hate. They get in a cycle in boxing where there's always money left on the table. I'm always chasing this. I'm always chasing that goal. And you end up worse off. Same with jobs, relationships, etc. Know when to say it's done. And it's not the end, because it's always something new. So you move on to another aspect of life, or you move on to something else. And I think with Loma, the knowledge he will hopefully be able to give to people, his dad, Anatoly Lomachenko, tremendous trainer, trained Usyk for the first Joshua fight. I think that the knowledge Loma has, and hopefully he'll pass it on. Honestly, I'm sad he's leaving boxing in a sense of being an active fighter, because I love Loma, but I wish him nothing, absolutely nothing but the best in retirement. Enjoy your time with your family. Well earned. It's well earned. And no one can say otherwise. I won't have any bad words said about Vasily Lomachenko. He was brilliant. We loved Loma on here. I forgot to talk about Jay Opetaya. I forgot we had fights on today. So I haven't seen Junto Nakatani's fight. I did see the eye injury he put on his opponent. So Junto Nakatani is maybe going to be fighting Naoya Inoue this year. I would look. They're talking about doing that fight in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia at some point this year. And I want to see it. I want to see Inoue versus Nakatani, but that fight right there is the equivalent of a prime Joshua versus a prime Fury at Wembley Stadium in Japan. That's what that fight is. It needs to be in Japan. It needs to be in Tokyo. I will not complain if it's in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. But I think that fight right there is Japan's super fight. Junto Nakatani, no, just even saying it, man. Even saying that fight just sends shivers down your spine. Junto Nakatani versus Naoya Inoue. They have to do it. They have to do it. Like they have to do that fight. Even just you can tell, but that's like that's probably the next big fight for me. It's Boots Virgil, Junto Nakatani, and Naoya Inoue. That's literally what it is. So. Yeah, man, I'm just talking about that fight is kind of, sending shivers down your spine. So he won today. Jay Opetaya fought Claudio Squero, I think is the guy, how you say the guy's name. He looked a bit like Canelo, didn't he? He did, didn't he? He looked a little bit, like I was looking at that, I was thinking, he's striking reminiscence of Canelo in there. Claudio Squero, I think is how you say his name. So, but that none of his ability, none of his toughness. Well, he was very tough, but he took a Hail Mary beating in there from Jay Opetaya. And there's not really much to say. Two choices for Opetaya. Get the Zerdo fight. If you can't get that, honestly, if you can't get the Zerdo fight and they start BSing you, go up to heavyweight. I'd love to see him undisputed at cruiser, and I think he's the best. I think he can do it. But if they're going to start BSing you and moving the goalpost, stuff like that, go up to heavyweight. Go up to heavyweight and build towards that fight. That I think, Ade said it, and I agree with him, I think it will be him, Itauma. That's going to be the mega fight in a couple of years' time. Jay Opetaya, Moses Itauma, that will be the mega fight. As for Moses Itauma, so the rumour mill is, in fact, actually, I'll talk about the whole card, because there is fights that are actually confirmed, as opposed to fights that we're just talking about. So I haven't even really, I'm so far behind in the ring, Mag. Oh man, what am I doing? I forgot about Callum Simpson. You see, there was so much boxing on this weekend. I'm forgetting stuff. And I haven't even seen the Callum Simpson fight. But he did get a win last night, which went so under the radar. That's the thing, right? Ben Shalom. Obviously, we don't know what way it is with stadiums. That was in Barnsley Stadium, Oakwell. I don't know what way it was with, you have to use this date and stuff like that. But it went so under the radar. Apparently, Adam Azim wasn't even on the card. He was meant to be on it, and then he's not. And it's just a bit of a mess. I seen clips of the fight, looked entertaining as hell. I like Callum Simpson. He seems like a really, really good guy. European champion. It's a good prospect. A good prospect is Callum Simpson. I'm just sorry I didn't talk about it. There's just been so much on this weekend. I haven't even had a chance to do a review on the boxer card, and I hate that. That's one thing I hate. I flipping hate it when Sky, like say, Boxer go up against Matchroom, or Box go up against Queensbury, or vice versa when Frank was on TNT and Eddie was in the zone. I hate that because one goes without. There was one occasion, and I think what they ended up doing was that, oh crap, what was it? I think it was Lee Wood when he fought the rematch with Lara. There was a Queensbury card and there was a Boxer card, and I think Boxer brought the card forward to like the day. Could have been Mick Conlon when he fought Luis Alberto Lopez, Fernando Lopez. I think that was it, and I can't remember who was on the box. Could have been Adam Museum, but they all like. I wish they wouldn't do it, because you end up with crap like this where you're like, oh crap, this card's on, but this, I don't like it. I really don't like it, especially 2 stadium fights in the same country. What the hell? It just makes no sense to me. But August 16th, this is what we're looking at, right? So we're looking at Kikache versus Ray Ford. Great fight. Matchroom versus Queensbury. There you go, right there. Matchroom versus Queensbury. That's a really, really good fight. Nick Ball versus Sam Goodman as chief support. That would be. Tell me that wouldn't be the main event. No, that's not going to be. I was like, that can't be the main event. Nick Ball versus Sam Goodman as chief support would be phenomenally good, because Nick Ball is just Nick Ball. He's just brilliant. Sam Goodman was meant to be fighting now anyway at 122 pounds back on Boxing Day. Got a cut, pushed it back to end of January. Cut, hadn't healed. This is, there you go. I mean, Nick Ball is easier in theory than Inoue, but he ain't an easy night's work for no man. And the rumour mill is that Dillian Whyte, who was meant to be on the card last night, pulled out. We were wondering why. Well, apparently he's got a big fight in August. They're talking about him versus Itauma. People, that is a big fight. It's a fight that, in terms of matchmaking, it makes sense for Itauma, not in terms of building him, in terms of, a tough fight or anything like that, because I don't think it would be. I think it'd be a demolition job. But it's a great move from a marketing and PR point of view, because Dillian Whyte does still bring a certain audience. His name is still there with the casual audience. So for him to go in there and just go through him like a knife goes through hot butter, which is exactly what he'll do. That's exactly what Moses Itauma will do. That's going to be another boost to the name. Because Frank is not just trying to push Itauma to get world titles. Moses is a star. He has star ability. And matchmaking is a big part of that. It's not just how many fighters are there who are phenomenally talented, who are really, really good, and they couldn't fill out a gym in their home? They couldn't do it. Matchmaking plays a part in it. Matching someone with the right name at the right time, right now, that's what that is. Is it competitive? Is it F? It's not. He'll go through Dillian Whyte. But is it smart in terms of getting his name out there? Absolutely it is. It's a really, really, really good idea. It's very smart matchmaking from Frank Warren, who has always been a tremendous matchmaker. Frank Warren has always been brilliant at that. Say whatever you want to say about Frank Warren, but he is absolutely phenomenal whenever it comes to matchmaking. He just knows exactly what he's doing. He really, truly does. Let's have a look-see at some of the other news. It's really all been over the last kind of day. And I hope I'm not missing something here. Now, there is something I'm going to talk about now in a wee bit. Oh, of course. How could I forget? August 16th. What was meant to be headlining? It's meant to be Devin Haney versus Teofimo Lopez. Why is that fight not happening, Teofimo Lopez? So yeah, threw your toys out of the pram last week with Turkey. Then apologise, right? And now all of a sudden, no, you're not going to go through with the fight. Okay. You mentioned boots. You mentioned guys at 154 pounds. But you won't fight Devin at 145. As Frank Warren would say, do me a favour. This guy is one of the big... And Devin is a diva. But this guy right here, Teofimo Lopez, This guy is just a joke at this stage. So the biggest divas going in boxing. He's never happy unless he's crying and complaining. He's always going to social media. His dad's he's another one who's just a flipping something else. And all they're doing is making life harder for themselves than it needs to be. They're missing out on big paydays. They're missing out on opportunities to, further their career. And they're just wasting away and they're burning bridges. I have no sympathy for them because the man's an idiot with some of the stuff he says outside of the ring. So that's Teofimo Lopez. Rant over on Teofimo Lopez. I will move on from that. I don't want to be talking too much about Teofimo Lopez because it will only just start getting to annoy me. What else is there? There's not a great deal. Much else now, I have to say. Not a great deal much else. So I want to talk before I finish up. Anything? I'm just trying to think. Is there anything else? Not really. No, not really. On the Ring Magazine's page, so not really. I want to talk about something before I finish up, right? It's about a fight, potential fight, right? Now, I've seen no evidence that this fight is in the works or it's in the pipeline. But I have seen a lot of people tweeting about it and talking about it. But again, I don't want to do a video on something. I don't want to do a video on something. Like, I don't want to talk about rumors without there being a little bit of validity to back it up, right? Because there are rumors out there in terms of boxing, and this might happen. But even an article where it says like, okay, I can maybe quote that for a reference. I'm saying this is what these guys are saying. I haven't even seen that for this, but the rumor mill is on X that Anthony Joshua, who will be having a comeback fight some stage later on this year, maybe September, October, November, thereabouts, but he will be out this year at some point, right? Apparently it's going to be a 2-fight deal with Riyadh season. There was talk of Dillian Whyte, Jaron Anderson. Probably won't be Dillian. Well, definitely won't be Dillian Whyte now, most likely. Then the question is, well, who would it be? Because it's not going to be Tyson Fury, you would imagine, for the first fight. But for maybe the second one. But for the first fight, who is it, right? A lot of people are saying it could be Jarrell Big Farmer Miller. Now, that would be a phenomenally interesting fight for a variety of reasons. It's still, I'm still baffled as to why they've never released the full gloves are off all those years ago of Miller versus Joshua. The gloves are off, because that would have been phenomenal viewing. It would have, even now if Sky released that, it's doing 1 million views 6 years later. Never saw the fight. 6 years later, it's doing 1 million views, I reckon, on YouTube. Seriously, if they redid this fight now, the face off would be phenomenal. I mean, Ade be doing it, and I would be saying, Ade, mate, make sure you have security coming out your ass, because that you are talking about lighting a powder keg with Jarrell Miller anywhere you go, especially those face-offs, especially with someone like Anthony Joshua. After everything that happened back then in 2019, AJ ended up losing after that. It would be phenomenal build-up, but a fight. Listen, Anthony Joshua, I think, is done. He just got, it's been nearly a year, but he got knocked out very badly against Daniel Dubois in a fight in which he took a big old shellacking. And I just don't think stylistically that fight would be good for Anthony Joshua, in my opinion. Just my opinion, but I don't think it'd be a good fight for him stylistically. But that's the rumour mill anyway. If it happened, I would be very hesitant to pick Anthony Joshua. In fact, I might not even pick him. I don't know, because if Miller can take his power and he can outwork him, and I think Anthony Joshua is going to be gun shy like hell, then we could be looking at a Miller win. I mean, I would really not rule that out. Really wouldn't. So that's the rumour mill there. In terms of everything else, I hope you enjoyed the video. I am going to leave it there. I think we've just gone under the half-hour mark, so I will leave it there. I hope you all have a great week. I hope everyone is doing well. I'm hoping by the end of the week that, well, I'm back to London on Tuesday evening. So I'm hoping by the end of this week, maybe Thursday, Friday, the setup in the flat maybe won't. The equipment should all be there this week, but whether we get it set up or not is another story. But hopefully I'll have a new setup by Thursday, Friday, or at the very earliest early next week. So review of the week next week might look a bit different in the flat, but it will sound and look a lot better. So let's wait and see for that. I hope you all have a great week. Smash the like button if you could. Subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, peace.